with like, you can load these buttons.
Yeah.
With like, hey, like, share, subscribe, or hey, check out the website. Hey, this one.
Or you need a theme song.
I do.
You need somebody to write something about sweet Jesus. No?
Actually, I have some ideas.
Okay.
It's just another one of those. I haven't put the button together. And
Okay.
I know.
Okay.
so.
I love bananas. But mangoes are sweet. I love papaya. But nothing can beat the sweetness of Garurua.
There you go. That's it right there.
We are streaming, you know.
Yes. I was hoping so.
That sounds like it could work. We're going to have to get you to sing it for us after we officially get started here.
I'm going to back up though. I'm going to do
No, I don't sing. I make a joyful noise. That's all I do.
If I teach you, you'll do it.
So my wife, the music person, she won't even stand beside me at church because apparently I change keys constantly during a worship song. And so she will put the kids between her and I because I apparently mess her up. And so...
Well, that's because you're a man and they don't write music for men.
I mean, I just, you know...
Unfortunately.
I sing loud, but I just...
Make
that's
a
all I
joyful
do.
noise.
That's all I do. That's all I do. That's my one thing I bring to the table is I will sing loud. That's it.
So you guys are... this is great, but we got to start recording.
Oh, okay.
Start the actual...
Okay.
Save it. Let's do it. Here we go. Hey y'all, Pastor Emil here with another episode of Sweet Jesus. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Ice cream is sweet, but Jesus is far sweeter. Why? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about that, and we're going to do that by talking to my buddies here, Justin and Al from PPM, Praying Pelican Missions. It's been awesome to get to know these guys and to get to know PPM and to be a part of PPM. And we've talked about doing something like this for a really long time.
We have.
But, you know, it's not just you guys. It's like everything. Trying to coordinate schedules and make things happen. I think God is trying to teach us perseverance in these interesting years. I mean, if that's something you wanted, it looked like you wanted to jump on it.
No, I'm just thinking that, you know, it's made it harder us not living in the same city. But every time we get here, we're only here for a little amount of time. And it's like, hey, we need to do this. Okay, maybe next time. Yeah.
But we are live at 8:36 a.m. on my clock, and we're having ice cream. These are the coolest guys ever because they're the first ones, I think, that actually were interested in having ice cream this early. So, you know, if you're watching the video here, Facebook and YouTube, double strawberry swirl. That's what I've got with bananas because now it actually is breakfast. And Al just almost passed out because
I feel like that's a stretch, but okay.
But the double strawberry swirl inspired by Justin. That's what he's got.
Yes.
And Al here had
What's the second one?
it's the Blue Bunny mini swirl cones, and that's his second one.
I didn't even know what the name was because the wrap was blank.
The box. Yeah, I took them out of the box, and then I was like, I threw the box away, and I went, now I have no idea what to tell people these things are. But, you know, such is life. But we've got ice cream, we've got bananas, and if you're watching this first thing in the morning with us,
it might get a little bananas.
It might get a little bananas. You don't have to eat ice cream, but you should get something sweet. Put some honey in your tea or sugar in your coffee or have a croissant or a Danish or something, and come on in with us. We're going to talk about how sweet Jesus is and how Jesus is so sweet. He's working some really awesome stuff through these guys and through PPM. So I need to have a bite real quick. Everybody else, this is your opportunity to take a bite. I've been staring at this thing too long, but it's good. So I know Justin for about a year.
Yeah.
Was it about this time you showed up with Ecom to kind of talk, or was it earlier,
Yeah.
January maybe?
No, it was, it would have been November of last year.
Okay.
So yeah, we're getting close to a year.
Okay.
Yeah. I
And
feel like
now-
we should celebrate.
We are.
Oh, okay.
We're actually having the podcast we talked about. back in
About
November.
a year ago. Yeah, that's true.
And Al, I met yesterday. We were actually in New Orleans, and Al is kind of taking over for Justin, and so that's how this whole thing got started here. But why don't you tell us first? I got to ask everybody this question: what's so sweet about Jesus? And whichever one of you wants to go first, extrovert or introvert?
Let the introvert go first. What is so sweet about Jesus, man? For me personally, the first sweet thing about Jesus is that he came down. He left his throne, came down to save me, to give me this blessed hope that I have now, that when this body leaves this earth, I get to be with my Lord and Savior for eternity. What a sweet thing about my Lord. And the second thing, I mean, I may have 1,000. The second thing is that not only he saved me, but he also calls me to be a part of what he is doing. He is a self-sufficient God. He is the Lord of Lords. He owns the angels. He owns the universe. Yet he calls me to be a part of what he is doing, and which is why I'm here in New Orleans, from Haiti, served in Alaska, lived in Minnesota, now living in Texas, and it's all in relation to what he has called me to do, to go into the world and make disciples, share the good news of the gospel with those who do not have that hope. And to me, that's a very sweet thing about Jesus, because he has the power to do it by himself. He has enough angels who are pure, sinless angels, to do this kind of work. And yet he calls me, a born-again sinner, to be a part of what he's doing in this world, to save the world. So that's a wonderful, sweet thing about Jesus that is much sweeter than this little ice cream cone that I
Oh, yeah.
And this is pretty sweet, actually.
Well, that's kind of the point. Is this is so sweet, and if Jesus is sweeter, that must mean something, right? So, Al, follow-up question. You talked about the call, right? He calls me. You have a story that comes to mind about just how cool it is. You know, you found yourself called by your Lord to do something. You're in this situation. You just kind of like, man, I get to do this. Like, I get to be a part of this.
Yes.
All right, you got one. You got 12. You
Absolutely.
got
Yes, this story actually goes back to when I was in college. Actually, I was born and raised in Haiti. I went to high school. I graduated high school and went to college in Haiti. And when I graduated high school, it was a very confusing time of my life because, I was pretty good in school. I mean, I was good in physics and math and languages and pretty much everything. So
He speaks 4 languages.
wow.
So, but I knew what I would not fail at. So, getting into college in Haiti is a very hard thing because you have the state university, you have science, medical, linguistics, and they only enroll 100 to 200. And those are going to have to be the best, because otherwise you have the private ones that are super expensive, and unfortunately most people cannot afford them. So I had to compete with thousands of students to be able to get accepted in linguistics, which was part of the state university. So I competed. Again, I was accepted, and because I always had a huge passion for languages. I grew up speaking Creole, which is my mother tongue, Spanish, because my dad speaks Spanish. He used to live in at our neighbors, the Dominican Republic. And French is basically my education language, and then I picked up English as, my fourth one. So yeah, I got accepted in the linguistics college, and so moving forward, when the earthquake happened in January of 2010, that building, super tall building, 3-story building, went down in the earthquake. I was at school that day, and by the grace of God, I happened to leave earlier. So at 4:53, when the earthquake happened, the entire building went down. Over 200 students died.
Oh man.
The dean, vice dean, teachers, and it was hard. So after the earthquake, I decided to, because couldn't go back to school. I mean, we basically lost hope, especially in the area where I was, where the earthquake affected the most. And by the way, 300. I mean, what they could count, over 320,000 people died.
Wow.
In that earthquake. So I decided, because I had already spoken English, I decided to not just sit around and, just waiting for, an angel to come and save me. So I decided to start teaching English because being able to speak a second language, I know the advantage of being able to speak, second language, because of that ability that I had. I ended up having several jobs, so I wanted to pass that on to other young people like me. So I started teaching English. And 6 weeks later, not 6 weeks, about 6 months later, things started to get back to normal. So I went back to finish my studies. I was in my third year. It was a 4-year program. So I went back to continue. But when I got there, it was really, really hard. Not having a library. I mean, we went from having a huge building to a little shack. It was really hot. So it was really hard to be there. So at that time, the second week when I get back to the university, the Canadian embassy decided to grant the university with 3 scholarships for the 3 students who spoke English the best. And I happened to be one of them. But at that time, I didn't have a passport, so I lost the opportunity. And I mean, you may never understand it. For a Haitian, having the opportunity to leave that country and go study somewhere else in a developed country was a big thing. So I missed that opportunity, and the 2 other students went, and I'm like, it felt like rapture happened, and I was left behind. So it was really hard. But about 2 weeks later, Praying Pelican Missions came to Haiti. And my church, my home church, happened to be the first church that they came in contact with. So because of my ability to speak the language, my pastor knew me. I was a drummer at the church. But my pastor, from teaching English after the earthquake, he knew that I spoke English. And he called me to be his translator. And
Nice.
That's how I got connected with Praying Pelican Missions. And when they brought their first group, I don't remember the date, but it was in June, I got my first orientation week with them. And because they were impressed with, my service, my ability to understand the American culture and being able to bridge between Haiti, the Haitian culture and the U.S. culture, I was hired the second week. And that was my introduction with Praying Pelican Missions. And fast forward, met my wife who came on a trip. And in 2012, we got married and became the first full-time missionaries with Praying Pelican Missions, and we served there through 2018, when because of political unrest we could not bring groups to Haiti anymore. Anyway, so yeah, that's how I got to do a lot of missions. We became, I became a pastor to many pastors. I mean, we've worked with about 35 different churches because Praying Pelican Missions, for the church is our base. So we work primarily with the local church. So yeah, over the years, I developed relationships with those different pastors, and the amount of work that we've done over those years are really unnumbered. Many lives have come to the Lord. Many families were blessed. Widows have been blessed. Churches, schools. I cannot count the blessings that the Lord has poured, over my family, over different families, over the Haitian church, over the country as a whole, through the work that we have done with Praying Pelican Missions. So,
Awesome.
again, that's I didn't understand when I lost that opportunity to go to Canada. I didn't understand it until when God opened that door with Praying Pelican Missions.
Yeah, you'd have been gone.
I know, exactly. I'm like,
You'd have been gone.
what would my life been like right now? I wouldn't have met my wife. I don't know. I would, anyway. So yeah, it's all to say, God shut that door to Canada because He had something better for me,
Mm-hmm.
and I do not regret that. I do not regret missing that opportunity to go to Canada and having that opportunity to serve in my country with Praying Pelican Missions. So
Yeah.
how
Wow.
sweet is Jesus?
Jesus is sweet. He is. So, Justin,
Yeah.
we made this guy talk for
A little while.
a little while.
Yeah.
What's so sweet about Jesus?
So I'm actually I knew this question was coming. So
You did.
I've
You
actually kind of thought about it before, and I'm glad that Al had two answers because I also have two answers.
You want more?
Well, we should all probably have like 12 or something.
Yeah, that's true, but I feel like I can narrow it down a little bit to two. So my two answers. The first one, I'm gonna be honest, is a little selfish, but it's completely what He has done for me in my life. I love looking back and seeing where God has moved in my life and how He has opened up doors and closed other doors, and just where He's moved me and my family, and to see kind of where I am today, and to be able to look back and just be like, okay, God, I see you. I see what you were doing. Because in the moment, it's so easy to be like, God, what are you doing? Like just give me something. But then, later on, you just get to kind of look back and reflect on it and be like, okay, maybe you weren't telling me exactly what you were doing, but I see what you were doing now.
Yeah.
And so it really is. It's one of my favorite things I feel like in life is just to look back and see how God is taking care of me, my family, and kind of what He's done for us. And so that's kind of my selfish one a little bit. But the other one is just how sweet Jesus is His love for us. And it's kind of funny, as we were driving over here this morning, we were listening to Amazon Music, and the song Known by Torrin Wells came on. And I love that song just because it talks about how ridiculous it is to be known and loved by Jesus. And it amazes me all the time how, He knows me. Like He knows me. He knows every thought I've ever had, every action I've ever done, and He still loves me. And there's nothing that I or anyone else can ever do to stop that love of Jesus. And again, it just kind of, it amazes me how much He loves us no matter what we do. You can't get much sweeter than that.
Yeah.
Just the love of Christ for us is just, I can't even fathom it. Because there's a lot of people that, that I don't love, and to think that Jesus still loves them.
Yes. Well, that helps us
Yes.
get the courage to love them, right? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
because that's what He wants us to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's real easy to give up on people.
Yeah.
Real
Yeah.
easy to give up on ourselves too.
That's true too.
But He loves us.
I love to write, and I sometimes use that little illustration. Like when I'm writing, like if I write something I don't like the way it looks on the paper because I like, my writing to be neat, I just erase it. And I love to use that illustration for myself. Like God created me and, human beings. And we chose to be, to turn our back to him. And he could have just start over, scratch it, start over. But no, he didn't start over. He actually makes us look the way he wants us to by sending his son, to die for us. So anyways, I like to use that simple illustration to, like seeing my patience with something that's bad. I just, get rid of it and start fresh.
Yeah.
God did not do that when he could have done that.
He could have, yeah.
Have you seen his handwriting?
Actually, once he said it, I was like, yeah, I remember looking over at your notebook on Tuesday and going,
Wow.
is that like on the page?
Yeah.
Did that come?
Yeah.
Does that notebook come with this fancy stuff at the top? Or?
It's the fanciest writing I've ever seen.
And then I saw him actually write, and I went, wow,
Yeah.
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so Jesus is pretty sweet for all these reasons, and not just the fact that he didn't start over, but he also lets us start over like it's been erased.
Yeah.
Right? That those spots that you can't seem to get out, he can. And so many good things. And then obviously that's why y'all do what you do, because people need to know this, right?
Right.
So, Justin, you said looking back, you see how God is kind of working in your life and all that kind of stuff. How did you get to be a part of PPM? Because I think that story is kind of what maybe you were referencing, or maybe there's more things, obviously.
I mean, when can I not look back and see where Jesus is working? But,
yes, but that was a pretty big moment, I think, if I recall.
Yeah. So for me, I was actually in the finance world. I was working in the banking industry, doing private banking. I kind of tell people all the time I was playing with rich people's money, if you will, or at least helping them play with it, I guess. I don't know. And so I did that for almost 18 years, like a month shy of 18 years. During that time, I also worked within youth ministry, and probably about, I think it was around 2017 or so, God kind of started moving me out of the youth ministry. I didn't really understand why. I didn't really know. I don't know. I just had this feeling almost like it was just time to sort of transition out of youth ministry. And so tried for a little bit to kind of get into college ministry. So for about a year, did kind of a college ministry at my church. Honestly, it was, and I'm sure there are probably some of my friends that are going to watch this. It was horrible. It really was. It was bad. It just didn't go well. And I don't know. The funny thing is, some of the youth I was working with had graduated and were in college, and so it was some of my
youth
people that I knew really well. But it's like it just didn't click. I don't know. And I think I think again, looking back, I think it was maybe me trying to fit the square peg in the round hole. Like I just thought, okay, that's the next progression, is kind of maybe going to college ministry. And so yeah, it didn't really work. And so this whole time I'm just kind of praying and asking God, okay, God, what's next? There were some things even at my job with the banking that I just wasn't happy with. And you could just tell I wasn't happy. And so God just slowly started to reveal that he wanted my family to go into full-time mission work. I've always had a passion for missions. I've always loved taking, youth and college kids to mission trips. And so, yeah, he just kind of started revealing that he wanted us to go into mission work. And so the cool, funny thing kind of is, the whole time that he's revealing that to me, I'm not talking to my wife about it. I mean, wise advice, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not talking to my wife about it. I'm just it's kind of almost just this struggle that me and God are doing, this little dance,
What's my
if
wife
you will.
going to say to me when I tell her?
Yeah. So my wife, actually, the first year in probably 12 years, I didn't go with the youth to youth camp. My wife went. I didn't go. So I'm at home with the kids. My wife calls me. Youth camp's normally, Monday to Friday kind of thing. She calls me like Thursday night saying, hey, we need to talk. Okay. It's a little okay. And she says, hey, I feel like God's calling us into some sort of mission role. I was like, okay, funny that you should say that. Mm-hmm. I've been dealing with this for about a year. And so yeah, let's talk about this. And so she actually came home late Friday night. We just got into this big, deep conversation. I feel like we probably just like fed our kids chicken nuggets and then sent them upstairs to their room. And it was like 6:00 at night. And we were just like, just go to bed. Just leave us alone. Mommy and Daddy have to have a little talk time. And so we're just sitting there on our bed in our bedroom. And we're like, okay, we both feel like God has told us separately that this is what he wants our family to do. And so, and I kid you not, we turned and looked at each other and we said, is this really what we're doing? And we both just agreed and we said, yeah, this is what we're doing. Let's start doing this. And I feel like, I know my wife will probably say the same thing, but like the 800-pound gorilla just got off my back. I mean, immediately right there. Just the peace that came with the decision of just surrendering and just saying, yeah, this is what we're doing. So we kind of get to that point and we're like, okay, so we feel missions. Now what? And it took about another year or so to finally God reveal that he wanted us to be in the Pacific Northwest. And so, kind of, I don't want to go too deep into that story, but just kind of through our church and some connections, I was able to go on a trip to Seattle and just see the need that is up there for just sharing gospel up there. And so as we start deciding on Seattle, we started selling everything, so we started selling our house. We moved into an RV. So we are full-time RVers. So, we just travel around in an RV and it's like one big giant camping trip.
Nice.
And so, so we sell everything, and our plan, and again, I emphasize our plan was to be in Seattle summer of 2020. So something else kind of happened in March of 2020.
What happened?
Yeah, so the world shut down.
Yep.
And it's kind of funny saying even those words, but it's like, the world
Literally,
shut down.
That's what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we were like, and I don't know if you know this or not, but Seattle was the first case of COVID.
I was just going to say, it was right around there. I know it was Northwest, but
so Seattle had the first case of COVID. And so literally Seattle went in lockdown.
Wow.
And so, we have our house is sold. We're in an RV, and we're like, we started our own nonprofit. And so we're like, God, like you're giving us this vision. What are you doing? It was really one of those kind of like, God, seriously, like what are you doing kind of moments in our life. And so we just had to kind of just trust God that he had a plan. And so I'm struggling with trusting that he has a plan. And so I'm like, okay, what do we do now? And so I had worked with PPM on several trips as far as like taking our church to, so we had gone to San Francisco and to Alaska with Praying Pelican. So I was a little bit familiar with Praying Pelican anyway. I knew a couple of people. And so I actually made a call and said, hey, this is kind of what's going on with my family. This is kind of what we're thinking. Could y'all just use us kind of for the time being until we're able to. I know that PPM doesn't do anything in the Pacific Northwest, so could we just kind of could y'all just use us until we're able to get up there? And so so our vice president of operations is who I was talking to, and she's like, yes. I was like, oh, okay, that went better than I was expecting.
Yeah.
So what do we do now? And so so last year, I guess 2021, I traveled to, in the RV, we traveled to, I believe, 15 different states.
Wow.
And not all of those we did PPM trips in, but several we did. And so I just worked for them, and then they asked me to come on full time with them and head up our Texas and Louisiana regions. And so for the last year, I've been doing Houston, Lake Charles, and New Orleans trips. And this whole time, I've been kind of telling them, hey, I still feel called to the Pacific Northwest. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. As soon as we can get up there, we'll start doing trips up there. And so this last June, we did our first trip to the Pacific Northwest. We actually went to Portland, Oregon. And the cool part of it is it was my home church in Houston that went on the trip.
Nice.
And so it was really cool to kind of take my friends and family, really,
On the first trip.
on the first trip to the Pacific Northwest. And so as of the last week of October, we will be officially moved into the Seattle area. And so because of that, that's why we're here today, ultimately, is because I'm handing off my regions here to Al. And so, but I'm just going to throw this in there. So, I mean, they're also having me over the Hawaii region. And so I'm going to also get to travel to Hawaii a little
Darn.
bit. And so, yeah, in 3 weeks, I'm going
Life
to be
is
leading
so
a
hard
trip in
sometimes, isn't
Hawaii.
it?
Yeah, it is. It's some people really have to suffer for Jesus.
Yeah,
and
they do.
so
Clearly, you're one of them.
So-
although, I mean, selling everything you have and then not being able to go anywhere,
Yeah.
kind of, that sort of sucks.
it was
I mean,
it was a straw, but I mean, again, it was just one of those, just like, okay, God, we just have to wait and see.
yeah.
But it's awesome. I love being able to, again, look back right now and be like, I see the light. The light at the end of the tunnel is right here. In just a couple of months, we are going to be in the Pacific Northwest. We're going to be kind of planting some roots and start doing what God called us to do 3 years ago. And so compounding on that, I'm gonna add one more thing in there. So I'm gonna back up a little bit, and I don't know that you and I have ever had this conversation.
Maybe not.
So my oldest son has cystic fibrosis.
Oh.
And so I don't know if you know anything about CF or not.
A little bit. Not.
So it's a genetic disease that affects his lungs and his digestive tract. And so kind of the easy way to explain a little bit is, we all have like water in our lungs. His is like a really thick molasses. And so we all kind of breathe in and out bacteria and viruses all the time, and our body just
Deals with it.
fights it, gets it out. Well, when his gets in his lungs, like that bacteria will get in there and it'll just slowly start to deteriorate his lungs. And so so he got diagnosed when he was a month old. And he spent his first time in the hospital for pneumonia when he was like 3 months old. And so he's had his own set of doctors since he was 1 month old, pretty much. And so he's now 12. So when we kind of told his doctors, what's going on, and kind of that we felt like we were being called to the mission field and to do mission work, that our doctor, who happens to be a believer, he was like, okay, I understand what you're doing, but I can't approve this and I can't condone this unless you tell me kind of where, and we got to figure out sort of how we're going to handle his treatment plan, kind of. And so Texas Children's Hospital in Houston is his is where his doctors are. It's the like the third ranked CF clinic in the United States. And so we said, okay, well, we're going up to Seattle. And he says, okay, they're the number one ranked CF clinic in the United States. And again, you just kind of be like, okay, God,
Yeah.
we see you.
Nice.
He has a plan.
Yep.
And no matter what we are doing and thinking, I mean, he's so many steps ahead of us. It's not even funny,
Yeah.
you know. And you really do have to just sit back and enjoy the ride at sometimes.
It's a lot harder to do that though than, I mean, it's just not that simple in our own minds, at least, right? I did chapel yesterday with the child care center here. We got child development center, birth to 5, and talked about, I mean, how much do you talk to a bunch of,
Yeah,
so there's a curriculum and it's very basic and it keeps it simple, and I try to stick to that. It's hard to get them to pay attention, but they do, sort of, sometimes. I got a lot out of it though, because it was Abraham and Sarah, God is faithful, and so they give you like a 3-word theme and you just say it over and over. God is faithful, and you clap with them, and you just so it's, and then we got songs where they can just jump and dance and go crazy for about 10-15 minutes at the end. But I've been thinking about that story, and I think it fits, right? Abraham and Sarah, hey, you're gonna go someplace, and I'll let you know when you get there,
yeah,
and I'm gonna make you a great nation, and you're gonna have a son, and it's not gonna be this distant cousin, nephew of yours or whatever that's gonna inherit. It's gonna be your own son. And they wait, and they wait, and they wait, and then they go, oh, well, maybe this is how.
yeah, yeah.
And Hagar gets into the mix, and but then no. Then comes Isaac, and that was the point. Obviously, we didn't go into all the details on Hagar and all that. It's just, hey, Abraham and Sarah were sad. They wanted a baby. God promised the baby didn't come, and then the baby came, and everybody's happy, and God is faithful. It was that.
Yeah.
So I struggle with all of that. So you guys are, I mean, having a PPM team forces you into that quite a bit.
Yes,
And,
absolutely.
Things just do not go the way you want with almost anything. But then when you add like a whole bunch of other people and all these different programs and things, and then traveling to this area and storms and all kinds of chaos, and it's just adds another piece of chaos to the whole mix.
Yeah, one of the key words for mission works, but especially PPM, is flexibility.
Yeah.
You have to be flexible because things are going to change constantly. You got to just kind of roll with stuff. And again, that's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah. I'm currently doing a study on Habakkuk, and this whole theme that you just have to trust God, knowing that He has a plan. He has it all figured out, even though it may not make any sense to us. My wife and I had, by the way, I'm married to a Minnesotan, and we have 4 beautiful children. They're 8, 7. She turns 9 this month on the 16th. 7, 5, and 2.5. Christmas baby. He turns 3 on December 25th. So.
Wow.
So they've been through a lot. There were 3 of them were born in the field in Haiti, and one of them was born here. I mean, it was never our plan to live here in the U.S. I mean, we wanted to be there, serve the people of Haiti, and our children grow there. So, but I mean, it was our plan, but not God's.
Right.
My wife and I, about a year ago, we went to counseling, and we just had some time to reflect, on our life as we were. I mean, we had just been displaced from Haiti, and it was hard. It was not intentional, we were here, and all of a sudden we could not go back to our home, everything that we own over the years. We basically had to start life from scratch again.
Wow.
But yeah, we had some time to reflect on, just from day one when we met each other and how we served in the field, together, and, the birth of our children. I mean, just looking back at all the things that God had done. And we actually started writing a book. And the title would be When His Faithfulness Is All We See. No matter how hard the situations were, we could not see God's faithfulness in all of it. Even though it didn't make sense to us, we saw His faithfulness in all of it, no matter how hard. So yeah, He's a faithful God, and He works in ways that, we may never understand, but He remains God. Faithful.
The name of the book, When His Faithfulness
Is All We See.
Is All We See.
That's kind of it's not written yet. It's basically written, not edited, but that's kind of the title we were thinking.
The working title.
The working title. There you go.
So, Haiti, you mentioned the earthquake in 2010, and then you kind of mentioned 2018. That's when, right around November, it's the 200th anniversary, I think. Actually, there was a pastor and a student pastor at the church I was at the time that were there during 2018. I didn't realize until later that the State Department had been telling people not to come, kind of expecting it. Yeah. So they were stuck there a little bit longer than they anticipated. So a little familiar. I've been to Haiti, I think twice. I think I've been there twice with Food for the Poor. It's an organization down there, and we were supporting and building stuff there. So you're saying you actually were there, but you were in the States, and then you couldn't come back?
Yeah.
And it was during those riots in 2018, or was another time? Or
yeah, so really the summer of 2018 is the beginning of this whole human disaster that's been happening in Haiti. There were always, as a family, we've gone through seasons of, political unrest, but July of 2018 is when, the country was granted some significant amount of money
from oil revenue or something, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
with their from Venezuela and stuff like that. So, $4 billion.
And nobody knows where the money went.
Disappeared.
Yeah.
So the IMF was putting some kind of pressure on the government to give account to this $4 billion. So they decided, the best way to to get that money is to hike the gas price by.
Sorry, it must be outside. They're blowing something out in our little.
Like, Justin, why are you making noise?
I was like, man, are they mowing the yard?
It's probably just there's a little green patch out here, and I've never been in the podcast studio at 9:15 in the morning, so maybe that's when they come.
We've learned something this morning.
Yeah, we definitely learned something.
Yeah, so overnight they decided to hike the gas price by 100%.
Yeah.
So usually when there's a penny that's added on the gas price in Haiti, everything goes up because people rely on public transportation, and the country relies on importation. So
there's not much of a power grid, so people use generators.
Yeah, everything goes up with the gas price, and by raising it by 50%. Overnight was going to be just hard especially for the people who have to go out daily for to survive. So the country was shut down 3 days. I was actually about 40 miles from home, and I ended up spending 3 days away from my family, stuck because there's nothing. Roads were blocked. That's the most common way for people to express their frustration and anger. They block block the roads
Yeah.
because there's not many. So if one road is blocked,
Start charging
the whole
tolls,
country-
basically. Yeah, they're.
but just to draw attention, So, yeah. So I mean, from that point on, those who opposed the government, took advantage of the situation to arm gangs and, voice their frustration. Sadly, the wrong way, at the detriment of the majority. So things started going down, and fast forward, the president got assassinated, and the gangs started just sprouting all over the country. Like containers of guns would go, missing. Those guns would just get into the wrong hands. So it became really dangerous for us as a family, and so we got out, and we actually went back later in 2018, but we started knowing what's known as lockdown. So February of 2019, we actually got evacuated via helicopter because we were just missing. We couldn't get groceries, we couldn't get anything. So as a family, we wanted to be proactive, and so fast forward November of 2019, we were still there, and my wife was pregnant with our fourth. And in November, we're going into a 12-day lockdown. No hospital care, nothing. Everything was shut down. So my brother, who's a doctor, told us, you guys better go to the States because, my wife is a U.S. citizen. All my kids are. And, again, we wanted to be proactive just in case, because we got the advice from a doctor who said, the hospitals don't have any supplies. So if you guys have any issue, with the birth, it's going to be a big issue because you can drive anywhere, to a hospital. So we had one Saturday that was kind of open. We were able to make it to the airport. So my wife came here with our three older ones. Baby was born in December. I was able to go back after I was here for the birth and went back. But when I went back, it was a different Haiti.
Wow.
There was not as much protest, roadblocks anymore, but kidnapping started. So in February of 2020, I actually came back from Haiti to pick up my wife to bring him back home because again we never wanted to live here in the U.S. Haiti was home, and we wanted to be there and serve there. But when I left home, my dad for the first time told me, "Al, we know this is your home. Your wife loves Haiti. Your kids love Haiti, but stay in the U.S. for a little bit longer until things calm down." So I listened, I still left home with a backpack and flip-flops, knowing that I'm going to come back home. But when we got here, my wife and her mama had actually driven from Minnesota all the way to Florida to meet with me with suitcases packed and everything to go back home. But when I started getting messages from everybody, like the pastors we worked with, our staff, and everybody told us, "Hey, Al, you're a big target." Like my neighbors would come to my dad and tell him, him that Al is a big target for kidnapping, because we were well known throughout the country because of our service, to the church, and people would easily assume that we have a lot of money because of our association with Americans. There's that misconception too from some people that people in America have
endless amounts
tree
of
that
money.
grows money.
Yeah.
Go to the backyard and pluck some money from a tree. So we listened, and we had some friends in Mississippi. So we drove from Florida to Mississippi, and stayed with some of our friends. Thinking it was going to be just a couple of weeks. And then things would calm down, but nothing changed. It got worse and worse and worse every day. And then COVID happened.
Yeah, you ain't going anywhere now.
Exactly. So COVID happened, and Haiti was, shut down again, couldn't travel. But that didn't, lessen the social chaos, the kidnapping. It didn't make it any better. So yeah.
So what if God's plan that we don't always know about, right? What if God's plan was just, that whole COVID thing was really just to make sure these two guys,
So I'm not going to lie. I've thought of that before.
like, it's all really about Al not going back to Haiti and keeping him alive and doing ministry so that we could have this conversation, and Justin to get hooked up with PPM and help them get started in the Pacific Northwest, and then just as a token for his all the angst, you get to go to Hawaii too.
Yeah. I'm telling you, I'm not going to lie. I've thought that. I've even said to my wife before, I'm not saying it's all about us, but I mean, it seems to be a little bit about us.
But isn't that cool though? Like, God, like maybe there's just this off chance that God was really incredibly, immensely concerned about me.
Yeah.
To keep me from going back to Haiti and getting kidnapped too.
It would sound selfish to say that me, but what I'm thinking now is that there are for sure hundreds of millions of people who could say that.
Yeah. And God could.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it just shows how powerful he is and how much he does care about us, is that even in the midst of this enormous pandemic, that he is still working within people's lives.
Exactly.
And to say that the pandemic was, a good thing, or like God's doing it to, because a lot of bad stuff happened too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that somehow he can take something that bad and use it for good, just like, of course, the cross.
Yeah.
And taking the greatest injustice, the most horrific pain, misery, spiritual angst, everything that's wrapped up in that one event, and make it like the central event in history.
Right.
That saves people, that shows his love, right? And I don't know, I've been meaning to say, Jesus loves you a latte. I didn't just have ice cream. I had tea and honey in it. And so, Jesus loves you a latte.
That's funny.
And he did it and showed it in this horrific set of events. So we got to talk more specifically about PPM. We've kind of danced around it. Praying Pelican Missions.
Yeah.
You probably need to give your little elevator speech. You got to tell people why Praying Pelican Missions. And
so we are a short-term mission organization that believes in coming alongside the local church. And so we want to come alongside your local church, and we want to help you reach your community for Christ. And so really it kind of boils down to that, is we're not an organization that has its own agenda. We always want to partner with local pastors and local churches, and we want to help your church in whatever way that means to you to reach your community. And so I don't know. You want to expand on that?
Yeah, so one might ask, why the local church? We believe that God has called each and every one of us as believers to go out into the world and make disciples. That is the Great Commission. That's what we're called to do. That is our mission. And we believe that, if God wants to do something here in New Orleans, he will use his people. He will use his church. And the church is here 24/7. And that's why we want to join in what the church is already doing, in what God is already doing through his church. And, how beautiful it is to, have Christians from a different end of the world to join with other Christians from a different end of the world. And that was the beauty that we saw in Haiti. We had I have hundreds of examples, but I'm gonna take one. I have a one pastor that we brought a small team of 6 people from Minnesota to work with that church in Haiti. And at the end of the week, the pastor said, I was just asking myself, why did you leave Minnesota to come to Haiti to serve with me? And he answered the question. He said, God used you to tell me, to remind me that I'm not alone. So that's one of many stories. We come alongside pastors who really got to a point of discouragement. They feel like they're alone. They don't know how to reach out to their communities. They don't know what to do. They have the desire, but they don't know how to do it.
Especially right now with everything going on in the last 2 years with COVID, I think pastors are getting discouraged, are getting kind of burnt out.
Yeah, the statistics are not good.
Yeah.
And I think
they weren't good beforehand.
they weren't
now
good
it's like,
beforehand, and
now it's really
they're a lot
bad.
worse. And I read, it wasn't that long ago, something about how many pastors are ready to quit, how many pastors talk about that stretch 2020, 2021
Right.
being, the worst ever. And and then at the bottom of the statistics it said, interestingly enough, this percent, and it wasn't like nothing. It was like 19, 29, 30% maybe, is probably not higher than 30%, but a good chunk said, oh yeah, we've seen worse. Count me in that group.
So I think the idea of, we bring in teams to an area, usually for a week. At the end of the week, they go back home. Mm-hmm. And so that's why it's so important to partner with a local church, because we want these teams to always point people, whoever they come in contact with that week, we want them to point back to the local church, because we believe in that, the discipleship. Mm-hmm. We believe in that local church is what's going to make the impact in the area. We come in for 5, 6, 7 days.
Yeah.
There's only so much of an impact that really can be made at that point.
Well, it's relationships, right? It's not like
Absolutely.
you just do something and then it's done and you've made a disciple. No, it's
Right.
It's not like an assembly line. It's we are in the process of being made disciples. Like somebody is still making us disciples. God is still making disciples with us, in us.
Yeah, as we were meeting with Pastor Greg, one of our pastors here in New Orleans, and he mentioned something that they had just had a Bible study, and he pointed out to one of the participants there who came to the Bible study, and he said that's a result of our team, the Praying Pelican Missions team, going out with his church, to
they started coming to his church just because of the last couple of weeks when we had a team here.
Wow.
I don't know, a month ago.
Yeah, end of July or something.
Yeah. That they now have someone participating in their weekly Bible study because of that. And that's what we're here to do. I mean, and I mean, we're not saying that's, that look at us, pat ourselves on the back kind of thing, but it's all because, that's what we want to accomplish. We want to help the local church.
And when you look at it, I mean, the Lord Jesus told us that, look, the harvest. I mean, the field is ripe for harvest.
Yeah.
This harvest of soul will always be plentiful. And he said, few are the laborers. And no matter how many people we bring, that's always going to be true until he returns. So if Jesus says it, and that's why he came. That's why John the Baptist came, to prepare the way for Jesus. And that is our calling, because the harvest is plentiful. I mean, when we look around us, it is true that there are a lot of people out there who need this hope that we have. Why not sharing it? Why not bringing in more laborers to go out and share it?
They need to know how sweet Jesus is.
They need to know how sweet Jesus is. That's right. Way to go, man.
I'm trying to get the plug in.
So we've had a couple of teams didn't house everybody. So we had the 55-ish high school seniors and their leaders and PPM leaders. It was 55 or so folks that were staying here. And we've talked about maybe a bigger group than you're usually going to see. And
that is a large group. Yes.
You guys were kind of new to the area, and there were some newer people that were on the trip and everything. So we did have a little bit of chaos, but I actually don't think it was that bad. Surprise, like it should have probably been worse. It should have been way worse than that. But it was, to me, it was totally worth it. For us, we had the hot meals that we handed out that Sunday. We had a worship space, sanctuary, totally filled with groceries that got packed that Sunday. Those groceries got handed out Monday and Tuesday, I think. 300 bags of groceries, 1,300 meals, and then they helped go through our neighborhood around the church, just with a little prayer thing. Hey, how can we pray for you? Here's an email address. If you don't want to talk to us, just leave it behind. So like a little prayer canvassing, not direct evangelism so much. That was a long day. And they got a lot of work done. Yeah, but it was just the first day. That was their first day.
That was Sunday, if I believe.
Yeah. And then Monday, we went down into New Orleans East. There's a church down there, New Life Church of Christ, Holiness USA, Pastor Archie Brown.
Yeah.
And he actually came in here and did a podcast at one point.
Okay.
I mean, he just was so thankful to have people come down, to have a church like ours care about them,
right? To
have PPM people, here, and we said no, we should go there.
Yeah,
he was just thrilled with that, and
again, that's part of what it's about is churches helping other churches. We are one body in Christ, and I think too much, especially nowadays with our society, we try to focus on what's separating us.
Yeah, what divides us, yeah.
And we're not focusing on enough of, we all believe in Christ, and we need to come together and be one body.
Well, that's one of the things I love about PPM is, what you had sent me a list of all the teams you had coming in, trying to see if we could help, how we could help you out and everything. Summertime is hard for us because we got our summer camp going, but I look at that list and I see Lutherans and Catholics and Methodists and Baptists and non-denom, all over the place. A wide array of viewpoints on a variety of things.
Yes.
And to me, that seems like it's Jesus's prayer being answered.
Yeah.
Right. Jesus says, before he dies and everything, his high priestly prayer, he's praying multiple times in this one chapter. Lord, Father, bring them all together.
Unity.
Bring them together.
Yeah.
Because when they're one, there's going to be some pretty powerful stuff that takes place.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened. And it helped that happen here too. So we were partnering with Brother Greg's church. We were partnering with Pastor Archie, the Boys and Girls Club, and then Family Promise is an homeless organization. They serve the homeless families in our area, and just coming together and helping people out, and it was awesome. And then in June, we couldn't house the team because of our summer camp, but we had a team. It was a small team. They put up a fence for one of our members who had lost her fence in Ida, so it was almost a year.
Right.
And she still loves her fence. And not only that, but I feel like she seems far more connected now than she was before.
Great.
I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just noticing things.
Yeah.
But what a blessing there. And I really do think it's a fantastic ministry, and that's why I have you on. I know you guys have to go. In fact, Ecom actually texted me. He may not know that you're with me, but somehow the Lord...
I don't know that I told him that we were doing this morning.
So he sent me something, and one of the Okay, well, I think it's because it's a Tim Keller quote, and he knows I mentioned Tim Keller a lot. But
Oh, okay.
something, God's got me on his mind somehow. You
Yeah.
can tell him I said hi.
Yeah.
But this is one. Before we go, just explain the name. We got to explain the name.
Okay. You,
The
So-
Praying Pelican Missions.
so I don't know.
Yeah.
You've been around a lot longer than I have, so you may have.
So I like,
You go.
Yeah, so I like to put it this way: they're two brothers, American brothers, went on a mission trip to Belize, and they partnered with a church there. They went on a mission trip and partnered with a pastor called Pastor Lord Stanford, our very first partner. That Praying Pelican Mission has from the beginning. That's back in 2003. And they had a wonderful experience, and they went back, to the U.S. and decided, man, that was a good thing that we experienced. What if we create something to allow more people to experience that beautiful thing of, an American church coming alongside a Belizean church and accomplish something beautiful. And that was their inspiration. So they went right to work and decided we have to come up with a name for our little agency. And they chose Praying Pelican Missions. And the idea was to really spur people on asking, what's that Praying Pelican Missions name? That's weird. What do you do, Praying Pelican? What's that all about? So that was basically the idea so that they could share the story. Hey, we went to Belize, and the Lord worked in mighty ways between the two churches, and we saw partnership being built. We saw relationships, we saw encouragement, we saw all of that. But later on, they found out that the pelican is a Christian symbol that is used a lot in churches. So there's stained glass with pelicans. There are churches that have the pelican,
In Belize.
In Belize.
In Belize, it's a very Christian symbol.
very Christian symbol. So the legend, not fact, is that when the baby pelicans are starving, in times of when food is scarce, the mother pelican feeds her babies with what's in her stomach. Hence, picture of self-sacrifice, which is, again, to the extreme, what the Lord Jesus did for us, giving himself on the cross to die for us. So, a symbol of self-sacrifice. So that's the story behind Praying Pelican Missions. And so the local church has always been our base. And our motto is that we exist to encourage, assist the local church in serving and reaching out their communities for Christ. So that is why we exist. And when we bring a church to a different church, whether it's from Minnesota to Haiti, for instance, our heart is to see a genuine relationship being built, a genuine partnership being built between the two churches. And a long-term relationship remains between those two churches, and that sustainable ministry, comes as a result of that partnership. So in Haiti, we had churches that the same church for instance, we had a church from Palestine, Texas, who came to a church in Haiti, and they started coming in 2011. And it was their desire to come back to Haiti year after year to continue to build rather something physical or help that church reach out their communities, support kids, and until Christ comes back. And that was, I had a church from Washington State who started coming to Haiti from day one. And it was just a beautiful thing. It made my job so easier. Basically, all I had to do was just pick him up at the airport, drop him off in my community, and then you see the two churches working together. There's still the language barrier, but you almost couldn't see that because everybody knew each other's name. It just became one community, and that's our heart for every given location that we work in.
So we have a picture recently, a recent picture of a pastor of a church that I don't even remember what country they're going to, but they were going to another country, and the pastor of that local church embracing. And it's them, I mean, you can tell in the picture they hadn't seen each other in several years because of COVID. And there'd been this long-term relationship with them. And then they had this gap because of COVID. And they just, in this picture, the two pastors hugging, and you can just tell it is an embrace of this true partnership and this true love for each other. And I think they truly missed each other after this long time. And it's just, I mean, it's one of those pictures that I think we as an organization love to see, because that's what we want. We want this true partnership between the Coming Group and the local church. Just because, again, kind of going back to what we said, that's what we believe the church should look like, is this one body.
Yeah, and my church actually, my church was, my home church back in Haiti was the first church that, PPM came in contact with. And about, I think, 5 or 6 years ago, my pastor said, we can do something too. I mean, we have all those American churches coming and serve. We actually brought a group from our church back in Haiti to serve with our partner here in Mississippi. And we came to New Orleans for recreation and all of that. So since then, that was the first trip. And my church back in Haiti has been sending a group from Haiti to Cuba. I think we went there a couple of times, and to different locations, because they were just inspired of why those people just left their home and come and their resources and bless us, and we can do the same. So yeah, it's just a mutual. That's basically the goal. We want that relationship to be mutual. We want those churches to be inspired, to send people out, because hey, guess what? When we came here, we shared the gospel, we helped. We did as much. Not as much, but we did similar ministries here that were very much needed. As what was happening in Haiti as well.
So I think, a lot of times people think of missions as the American church going internationally. But as an organization, we want all churches to feel like they have the ability to do mission work. And so we recently, just this year, opened up Kenya. And I don't know that we've even sent an American church to Kenya yet, but we've had 5, I think. I think it's at least 5 Kenya mission trips going to different parts of Kenya.
Wow.
So the local church in Kenya is going to another local church hours away and staying for like a week and doing missions. And that's what we want as an organization, is that we want to globalize the church. It's not just about Americans going to other countries. Other countries can go to other countries. Other countries need to, can do missions right in their own backyard. It's just not an American thing. Yeah. And so that's our, I don't know, I guess kind of even our dream right now as an organization is that we are globalizing the local church.
Yep, we want to see as many churches coming from Kenya, coming from Haiti, coming from Puerto Rico, to go wherever they want to go, and we will facilitate that. So we want to be that bridge between all churches, who want to go out and serve, wherever they feel like the Lord calls them to go.
Yeah.
Well, and America is the 3rd largest mission field in the world.
And it should be. So it needs to be.
Yeah. So we could use some help here.
Yeah.
I've had some contact with Ethiopian Christians from in Washington, D.C. area. I was at a church about an hour and a half outside of D.C., and there are a ton of Ethiopian immigrants there, and Ethiopians are coming to that area and other areas to plant churches and do their missionaries.
Yeah.
Because, hey, there's all these Ethiopians here and we need to reach them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so they come here to do mission work, and not just the Ethiopians, but like, yeah, these Americans. What's wrong with them?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's so much wrong with them.
There's so much to unpack on that. I don't think we have time for that on the show today.
We definitely don't. I don't want to keep Ecom waiting too long, but I just want to say how much I think you guys are globalizing the church, helping local churches, local pastors, not knowing how to even get something started. But hey, we got all these people coming, so
Yeah.
everybody, let's batten down the hatches. Let's go, and it forces you into something that maybe not everyone else would have done if I said it, but because I said, hey, they're coming and they're going to do it, there's somebody who wants to help us too, right? I think manpower, people power, people resources, that's what most churches are lacking. A lot of churches have older congregations in some situations, and they just don't have that same energy and enthusiasm, and then you infuse it with typically younger people. A lot of younger people are usually involved, I've noticed. I think.
Yes.
And that really just, if you can take just young people and partner them with the not as young people, I think that alone, right, there are churches that are looking around going, where'd all the people go? Where'd all the young people go? And then that's part of what is missing.
Yeah.
Not everyone has that energy, that enthusiasm, that, hey, we got to go change the world kind of attitude. And man, it's just, I know it definitely helped jumpstart us,
Good.
coming out of COVID and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
it's been great, guys. But again, Ecom's waiting and our ice cream's done. Did you finish, or did you let it turn to soup?
No, I did not finish.
He has to drink his.
Oh, man.
I did not. I ate about half of it, and I was like, no, I can't do it
Wimp.
anymore. I can't do it anymore.
Wimp.
I told you gave me too much.
Well, I probably did, but that's, it is what it is. So we're just going to have you back next time. I'll put it in the freezer. That's what I do with my 6-year-old. He can't finish it. Put it in the freezer, and when you
All
come
right,
back,
I'll have
we
to
will,
fly back from Seattle, and we'll do
and we'll
another.
break it out and say,
Yeah.
oh, no, nobody can have that one. That's Justin. So
He's coming back.
just like Jesus, there's a lesson in there. Jesus is coming back. Justin is coming back.
I feel a little awkward with that analogy there.
Yes, well, Jesus is so sweet because he comes back.
Yes.
He came back from the dead, and he is coming back
Yes.
again.
That's for sure.
And that ice cream is going to stay in that freezer to be a reminder. Maybe
One
not.
day Justin will come back.
But wish you the best in the Pacific Northwest and Hawaii.
Thank you.
which
Thank you.
Gets lumped in with that, but I'm not sure it's really the Pacific Northwest. And
It's close.
Almondo Jean-Louis.
You got it.
That's the full name there, the real deal there. Looking forward to seeing a little bit more of you.
Yeah, looking forward to working alongside you.
All right. Hey, y'all. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Ice cream